Hello, this is another review of a KataGo versus KataGo game from the same series of games put together by Maharani that I reviewed one game from in my last video. So I'll put a link in the description if you want some more info about this series and other games in it. This game number 12 that we're going to be looking at today was specifically requested by Maharani, who I think was curious about this one since it's particularly complicated. So it's a really long and complicated game, so let's just jump into it so that the video doesn't become too long. And I'll try to, keep it brief, not get stuck in the complicated variations too much. So we have normal opening, 2 for 4 points, 2 3 4 points, and black begins with approaching the lower right corner with a low approach. And here we have a very basic joseki, just kick, jump, and black takes a high extension. So nowadays this is a very common joseki from this 3-4 point low approach, and also quite an easy result to understand. And in the upper left corner, white instead chooses the high approach. Very often, from the high approach, Aya is just like attaching underneath. So this is by far the most common move nowadays, just taking a big corner like this. So this is a very easy way to play, but here's the first really interesting part. Much more common, I think, is this low jump. This is common joseki here, but here KataGo chooses to play a keima to the fourth line. So this has a little bit more of potential to develop along the top, maybe. After this low move, the top side becomes sort of uninteresting, becomes sort of low, and there might be a shoulder hit later on or some other move to keep the side low. So this move aims to make a higher position, but also leaves a little bit of agi with this cross attach here, which we're going to see threatened later on. But for now, white simply makes the normal extension here, and the game continues. Black approaches the lower left, and here again we see a slightly unusual move. Common here would be something like respond directly, or maybe kick and respond like this. But KataGo actually chooses the second line move. I've seen this called a foot sweep sometimes. It's sort of like a kick, but even lower. And it's sort of similar in intent to the kick, but we can see that in this with this sequence of moves, white sort of helps black to make a good position here. So this move, its foot sweep, still sort of aims to keep the corner, block black from sliding into the corner or such, but also doesn't touch black directly, so doesn't help this stone make shape, sort of. And this move can usually be played when white already has a stone around this area, around d10 or similar, because since white didn't respond here on the left, it's very comfortable for black to actually immediately approach from the other side as well. And there will be some weakness in the corner. So it's very common for black to jump in here, and now it's good that white has a stone which sort of already acts like a pincer towards the c6 stone. So we can see that this stone can't make a comfortable 2-space extension, it can at most make a 1-space extension here. So I think this would be slightly better for black if white did not have the d10 stones, but now it's an even result. For now, white is actually going to jump into the lower side, but first white makes a quick forcing move on the upper side. So here, now this weakness from before comes into play. So just to show, if black just plays elsewhere, then of course the aim that white has is this attachment. Which means that, for instance, obviously black can't just block like this, because white will, very simply connect up in this way. Black can try to be more fancy with this sort of clamp, but white could force ones like this. Maybe cut here now to ask whether black wants to give up these 2 stones, and if black wants to save these 2 stones, then this becomes forcing, and white connects up. So at this point, black is sort of forced to be quite submissive here, just crawl like this. we can get some result like this, where white cuts off this stone on the outside. Maybe later on black makes this exchange. So black keeps the corner, but this is of course very, very nice for white to get the outside like this. So black kicks here to prevent that. There are some other options. Black could also play foot sweep of their own. But black kicks to put maximum pressure on this, because right now white actually doesn't really have time to keep playing with this stone. White just wanted to check sort of how black wanted to handle this area, and then white is going to return to the lower side. This stone is going to come into play later on. Okay, so white jumped in here, following up on the preparation made by this e2 move. But then black doesn't respond to this directly, but instead plays on the left. So both sides here are sort of ignoring each other, just saying, okay, I'm going to follow up what I threatened, I'm going to follow up on my threat. And still here, like black plays on the left, saying, I'm going to make this group more comfortable. And then white says, okay, but then you ignored my invasion here, so I'm going to follow up that, and I'm going to make my group stronger, I'm going to make this stone weaker, and I'm going to threaten to attack this group here. And again, black says, okay, then I'm going to continue over here. So this sort of sequence can be a little bit confusing when looking at the game for the first time. Lots of jumping back and forth. In human terms, we would think of it as sort of fighting spirit, trying to not to just respond to what the opponent is doing. But of course, the AI doesn't have any concept of fighting spirit. It believes that the biggest move right now is this B10 point. So they won't just continue ignoring each other just because, but they're doing it because it's the best move at the time. And we can see that right now white actually decides that rather than following up with the attack directly, it deems it more important to actually protect this white group here. So even though this B10 move can look a little bit slow, I think when I saw it first time it sort of took me by surprise, just a slide on the second line here. The follow-up at D12 would actually be quite severe against the white group. So of course judging which is more severe between something like N4 and D12 is really hard, but KataGo decides that, okay, I'm gonna make this group stronger at this time. And let's see, what's next? So black simply jumps out here, sort of loosely connecting up this left side group and this stone from earlier here, which sort of doesn't have a base, so it's good to keep it connected up. This also surrounds the white corner. This corner is going to be fine, and it's not super urgent for white to play there right away. White's going to get this kick in soon, but first just jumps in here to make sure that white gets this important point. So this is still coming back to the idea that white played this K5 move before and now wants to follow up with an attack here. So black tries to keep this stone separated. Now white just gets this kick to make sure that the corner is going to be fine. There's still some weakness at C3 here, but white will have good ways of handling this. So for instance, let's say white just plays elsewhere. Black comes in right now. One simple way of handling this would be just to block this side, and there is this common strategy like this to allow black to capture one stone but still connect back in this way and live in the corner. So white is really not in any danger in the corner, but there is some RG there for later, which might turn out in different ways. But for now, white is going to take another sort of probing move up here. This is really common in this after this Joseki. Either even with the normal jump here, this is a common probing move, which is often played quite early. The question here is whether black wants to defend at this point or around this point. And if black defends here, as black did in the game, then later on there's still a little bit of weakness around E17, which might come into play this Hana later on. Right now it doesn't look like much, but it's going to become something later. And if black instead chooses E17 to try to eliminate that, well, then this cut is a little bit annoying, because even though black can capture it, that means white gets this descent here for free. And this is actually a really big deal for the safety of this group. Having this descent will make this connection a lot stronger and the whole group a lot stronger. So at this time, black says that it's more important to keep this group weak, and this weakness is more of a theoretical future concern that we will have to handle when it comes up. And now white returns to the lower side. So here, of course, white's aim here is to keep these two black groups separated. And so white is threatening to connect up to J3 here, and black is going to block, but first just place a quick shoulder hit, forcing here on the right. I think this is sort of, we can see that in a few moves here, it's going to be, these two stones are going to be sort of swallowed up. So black is preparing here to make it a little bit harder, a little bit inconvenient for white to just eat these directly with a forcing move like this. But black does have to come back here and keep white separated along the bottom. That would be very big to allow white to connect at this point. White jumps out, black jumps out. And we'll see here that while white is trying to attack this black group and capture it, these two white stones over here are becoming very weak actually. So at this point white is going to sort of lose any hope of running out with this group, and he's just going to sacrifice it for now. With this quite crude looking move, looking at this wedge here. So forcing black to protect that cutting point, and then also Hani here on the bottom, just strengthening this group and, you know, allowing black to capture this, but on a smaller scale. Now white could just connect here, and then black would connect. This would be a good exchange, but white chooses to actually go for the tiger's mouth connection here, which also of course saves L2, but it allows black this Atari. So if you compare this position to the one where white just connects immediately, the only difference is that black got a stone at L1 and white got a stone at N2. And the point of the stone at N2 is that white now has a sort of backup connection at P2, which might be helpful in the future. And L1 also has a little bit of value for black, because it means that a potential clamp at J2 is no longer working. So in game, black plays, let's see, if in the game we get to this position where black can play this sort of fancy looking move to handle this, protect the cut here. It would no longer work for white to cut. And this would not work without L1, because then white could play this clamp and connect underneath, but with L1 there, this clamp is not working. So white just plays a quick Hane here. I think this is preparing to use these stones in some way later on. There are a couple of ways it could happen. In the game we're going to see white sort of come in from the center and sort of rescue these stones. Another possibility is that when black comes into the corner, potentially in the future, we already saw one way of handling this would be to protect like this. But maybe in some future situation white would like to block from this side, and then we could get something like this where this H4 stone is quite perfectly placed. So yeah, I'm not sure if this is more important in connection to the corner or to just preparing to move out in this direction, but KataGo decided to make this Hane here at this point. Okay, so white is now prepared with all these moves, like quick replay. White got this move for free, and then Hane connect for free. So now white can just swallow these stones up. It's not very easy for black to move out here. It looks like there's still some space, but even if black could save these stones, it would not be, you know, pleasant. So black makes one quick forcing move, but then it's going to just leave this group for now. We consider this group as dead for the moment. And black is instead going to turn to attack the upper left. So black has gotten quite strong around this area. It's quite a nice influence. So it's not unreasonable to put some pressure on this white group. And white here wants to make some use of this H17 stone from earlier. It would not be good to just maybe extend here. Then white is just cleanly split, which would be really bad. Also, if white just jumps out here, then black gets a very nice shape point here. This tiger's mouth is very strong. So white takes this shape point, which is like, it's not trying to save the stone directly, but it is making some use of this stone. This stone is going to have some good agi later on. White follows up with this shape point, trying to take away the eyes of this group and threatening to cut here. White could just block like this, but this would not leave much eye shape along the side, so it would be quite painful to be forced to connect in this way. So white tries to be a little bit more efficient by descending here, which sort of makes a connection while also threatening b9 later on for an extra I here. But this connection is actually not completely secure. If black goes here now, technically white could connect with this really ugly empty triangle. Like this, white would have mi to capture the outside stone or this one, but black is just going to connect back here, and like white has no eyes, and black got a bigger corner for free. So this would be super painful, and white would instead play this one. So black could cut if black wanted to at this point, but it just comes down to not being like a good idea at the moment, because this black group is not super strong, and white following up here on the upper side is sort of too good for white. But this cutting edge is just going to stay there for a while, so black doesn't want to cut it right now, but it's going to hang around, and I'm going to be concerned about it for a while. And I spent a lot of time just at different timings trying, but now, what if black to try to cut it this time? So we'll look at some of those variations. But again, black cuts this shape because, of course, this two-space jump here is not it's not connected, so black can just cut here. Black is not going to cut at g14 immediately, but rather goes for this one. Just trying to build some territory along the top while sort of putting some pressure on this white group. Now white jumps out here, and still I think this has a lot to do with keeping this variation sort of bad for black. Like at this time, if black tries to cut, like these stones are a little bit too weak to keep it for it to be realistic. So white jumps out, black strengthens the stones, and now white plays this Hane, which takes me a bit by surprise. It sort of looks like it's really far away from the ongoing struggles on the left, but I think it has an indirect effect actually on it. It might, lend a helping hand to this group in the future. But I also think it might help to like expand this white area and potentially, like we talked about before, move towards saving these stones in the future. So this move is a bit hard to explain because I think it does like several small things. It's just a key shape point in the center playing a hand like this. So it's not like one clear purpose. I think it has an effect in many different variations. Black gets to follow up this cut, which is a little bit more clear cut. This is by cutting here, we see that black is building a lot on the top. This is quite a nice influence now. And black again strengthens these stones a bit. So white takes the time to actually capture b10, because this group could potentially become quite weak otherwise. It's nice to have some eye shape for it. And black takes an extension along the top. So this is sort of extending from this wall over here. You can think of it as an extension from the corner, but this is starting to really make the top black's territory, potentially. And white plays another sort of slow-looking move in the center, so once again, I find this hard to understand. It's a lot harder to see the value in this move compared to the value of something like 017. But just like the previous move, L8 here, I think there are multiple meanings behind this. If white played elsewhere, it seems like black is a little bit interested in this cut. There's a little bit of AD going on here. So this move is making this cut a little less attractive. It's also, once again, one step closer to saving these stones down here. And it might have an effect on making this black group here weaker in the future. We're going to see this become quite weak. So it doesn't look like much right now, but we're going to see in the progress of the game how this move has a large effect actually. And now black plays this beautiful fifth line shoulder hit. So of course the fifth line shoulder hit became a bit famous after the second AlphaGo Lizardol game, where AlphaGo played a really cool fifth line shoulder hit that was quite difficult to understand. This one I think is easier to understand, and immediately when I see it on the board it looks like a very good move. Because white is committed now to capturing these stones, especially after just having played k8 here. White really wants to keep these stones dead, so white is just going to defend sort of submissively like this. But then this is such a pleasant forcing move when black is trying to build a big area here on top, and black follows up with this big turn here. So we can see that if we compare like this with this one, I think it looks really nice for black to have gotten p10 in as just a small help to make this moe a bit more threatening. White peeps can't allow black to just build this moe without contest, so it's going to try to do something about it. But black does not immediately respond here. It would be very tempting to just respond like this. Black just calmly extends here, making a strong shape, and actually now for real threatening this b13 move. So at this point, white actually does defend on the left, so it's very interesting now to consider, okay, what would happen if white plays away now? Then when black plays here now, it's not really, it's complicated, you have to do a lot of reading, but it's going to end up in a capturing race, which black is actually winning by one move. So we might have something like this, maybe like so. We see that black is winning by one move. So at this point, after this move, this b13 move is quite a serious threat. But if we compare this to maybe earlier, that would be a good time to look at it. Let's look at it right now. Then, or maybe I think, yeah, let's look, instead of taking O17, what if right now black tries to go for this one? Then at this time, still like white could here and get this one. And like it's a bit complicated because black can sort of, if white responds here, then black is just connected out. So when black forces here, white has to Atari here, black can Atari out, can capture. And in the end, black actually managed to capture these stones on the side. But in return, white has gotten a really strong group in the center. White can extend here now to actually make this into some nice influence in the center. It's not previously it was a weak group, now it's a strong influence. And also white got this b6 move in, sort of threatening to connect back here. And this b6 move is quite big, since it also helps to make the corner even more safe from something like c3. So at this point it's like 90% for white, according to KataGo, even though black managed to capture this left. So that's a little bit glimpse into why, like even at this point, when white takes one stone here, it looks like there's still this problem with this cut, but actually it's not a good idea for black. But okay, after black got h12, it's a different story, so now white actually comes back and protects. Black tries to get another one of these sort of pleasant forcing moves, so if white were to just respond here, then it would be a bit too submissive. So white tries to fight back like this, saying that, okay, if you cut here right now, I'm just gonna swallow the cutting stones up, so no use to do that for black. Black plays here, sort of pretending to cut this shape, but actually black is not going to follow through right away, but rather is going to make some shape here on the right, preparing to later on get this cut at L9. And now, since black never actually responded to this peep, white gets the opportunity to connect here. So it's a little bit tricky for black now to handle this situation in a good way. Black starts with this Atari, just trying to keep this one stone dead. And now white plays this Hane here. So we said a long time ago that when white pushed d16, black chose to protect c17, and this left some problems with e17, and now it's see it come into play. So there are two sort of reasonable ways to protect here. Black could choose to go for e18 or f17, so A or B here. So let's look at both of them. If black plays this one, white can Atari, and black sort of has to connect here. If black captures a stone, then white gets to capture these two stones, and this is terrible. Now white is these stones are 100% alive and inside black's area of influence. Black has to connect here. White can capture one stone. And funnily enough, KataGo does not want to actually connect underneath here, but prefers to just extend here. This would be a bit counterintuitive for me at first, but it makes sense when you see it, because like this descending here is pure points at this point. It's not making any eyes for white, and black is also quite strong already on both sides. So black just extends here to keep the shape strong and keep white from having any ice. And now white could, let's see, white could like connect back like this. It would be still quite even, but it's a little bit pleasant for white to be able to connect back so easily and still have this potential for h18 later on. So, okay, that was what happened with A. Let's look at B. Then white can start by descending, and then also going down with this stone. And black needs to be careful. If you, for instance, play this, then it's a bit scary. You have to consider, is this ladder actually working for black? And no, I don't think so. So then black is in big trouble. So black is gonna connect here, white can extend. And still here, like if white tries to just take a territory on top, white can turn here, connect, and something like this capturing raises this corner is actually going to be good for white. So there's some really annoying agi for black. So at this point, black will actually just defend like this, really try to keep these stones dead, but this is like to force, it's pleasant for white to force black to play a second line move like this. And at this point, white can either just connect back like this, or even more efficiently put some pressure down here and sort of indirectly connect back. This would also be like close to even, but slightly good for white, I think. So, taking that into account, black actually rejects both of these options and decides to just play away, take this big cutter instead, saying that, okay, white can get the next move in this area and I'll just handle it when it happens. Black cuts, white gets to Atari. Same as before, black has to connect here. White gets to capture. Black connects underneath, white descends. And now we see that even though white played first, like the most white can do is still to start this ko, perhaps, would be the most severe. But starting this ko right now wouldn't really do much. There's not much, not any great ko threats. White would just cut here, probably. Black can connect. And white didn't really accomplish much by starting the ko, so white just decides to immediately cut here instead. And this will allow black to come back and protect, so black makes one quick forcing move and then protects the top. So we can see that this is a slightly better shape than if white sort of tried to start the ko and then failed it. There's a little bit more agi left for white right now. We'll place this move here, which is again doing several things at once. It's sort of extending a hand towards this group, potentially connecting up in the future. It's threatening to capture k10. But if black saves k10, white can quite severely attack this side. Black could probably capture these 3 stones. Something like this might happen. But we can see that even though black captured 3 stones, white is able to connect back up, and becoming this strong in this area, which was black's influence, is quite bad for black. So black actually first needs to protect this side. And rather than just play some slow move here to connect, black plays this sort of profitable move, inducing white, since these stones are a bit weak. White is induced to play this honey here, try to fix up the shape. Now black connects, gets stronger here, so now white has to come back and connect here. And at this point, it would be quite tempting for black to maybe cut here and try to attack this whole thing, but this would actually not be a great idea. Because white can just connect here, and now this black group is even a little bit weak, so it would have to like run here. And white has enough space with this group to be able to handle it quite confidently. So KataGo is giving white an edge in this situation. So black does not want to go for the cut immediately, but rather first tries to capture these stones. And it's not really working to try to save this in any way immediately, but white is going to probe a little bit more here, see if white can get any fun forcing moves out of it. And there are several options here for black how to handle this. Black could just connect in this way, and there's not very much white can do. Black could also just turn like this on the outside, and like even though white can capture 1 stone, it's not a very big deal because obviously none of these cuts here are working. White is short on liberties. But depending on what black's depends, there's going to be some different sort of algae left for white to use later on. So for now, black just takes the ko once first, allows white to play a ko threat down here. This ko threat is sort of, if black just finishes the ko, it would be very big for white to just connect down here. So connecting here, black needs to worry about like this whole group might just a cutting point here, and black needs to stay connected like this side and this side, so this would be good for white. Black protects by playing this Hane, white takes the ko back. And black plays this cut here. It looks like, it seems like from context that it should be a ko threat, but actually, like after white responds here, black actually doesn't take the ko back anyway. So I think black is just happy to get this cut in, and white wants to keep the shape complete here, keep black from coming inside here. But now black anyways comes back and sort of in this submissive way just make sure to be safe here on the top. So white can just play an Atari, and not much else is happening here right now, but there's going to be some adi later on. And then white plays this sort of jumping with this group towards the right. This move is also preparing to capture these stones potentially in the future. And black plays this move. I think, like, at first glance, I thought this had to do with the fact that, like, without the stone, if black plays, it's a good random move. We can see that white has this sequence here to capture the stones. But, so black plays this move here, which looks perfectly placed to prevent that. So that was my first idea on why black played there specifically, but actually, when I asked KataGo what would you do if white plays here, it doesn't want to save these stones anyways, because it's too good for white to drill through in this way. So if that is part of it, I guess maybe later on it might be good to prevent the stones from being captured, but I think it more has to do with just solidifying the top while also sort of peeping at this connection, threatening to cut white off here. We're going to see this one stone getting cut off and having to handle itself on the right side. And white just makes another probing move here, forcing black to just back off before jumping into the right. So I said that this move was sort of peeping this connection, so now black cuts here, white can cut it off. So white cuts black off and black cuts white off. We have another crosscut on the board. And we can see that this white stone here is not able to be captured. So white can play here, and there's no way for black to simply, capture this one stone. It's not working. So black is really cut. And black descends here, which is an important shape point locally, increasing the liberties of these stones. Because we're heading into a sort of capturing race between this white group and this black group. They're both cut off without any clear eye shape. And so it's obviously a very important situation. It's two big groups close to dying, but suddenly white just plays away up here, and it looks unrelated, but it is actually connected in a way, because if black tried to just keep these stones dead, then white could play something like, so white obviously can't save this group, like this is just completely dead. But what white can do is, by forcing black to sort of swallow this group up, we can get something like this, where white suddenly captures these 3 stones. So the timing of playing this, trying to save these stones right now, which can't actually be saved locally, is that black can't actually keep them dead while also keeping these 3 stones alive, sort of. So black actually plays away here and just makes sure that these stones are safe and tries to kill the right instead. But this of course allows white to save these stones, so now they're actually, this move is sort of a more efficient way to connect back to the group back here. Black can't cut like this is connected back. Also this way, this would be, cutting stones are dead. So at this point white is connected back. And then suddenly this black group here is looking quite weak. right? It's surrounded by quite a strong white group on the right here and quite a strong white group on the left, and the only escape route is sort of down here. So I think this move has a little bit to do with making sure that this group can still escape this Atari down here. White Ataris once and then captures the cutting stones, because if this group is safe, then this whole white group is in danger. So white needs to capture these stones to stay safe. And one interesting question I had at this point, so we're going to see the capturing race on the right continue, but why shouldn't then black just Atari here and ask white, do you want to save the cutting stone here and allow me to save my cutting stones, or do you want to capture 3 stones and allow me to capture here, saving my group? And I think, as far as I can tell, the only reason for black not to want to do that is that it removes the slight shortage of liberties on these 4 stones down here. So right now, a move around here is Atari for black. While if black was forced to make this exchange, capturing Gotha like this, then it's like super clean for white to just kill this black group. And the situation is going to be a little bit more like by black handling this in a different way, allowing these 3 stones to stay on the board, it's going to be a little bit harder for white to just swallow these stones up without any, consequences. So we return to the right. White descends, trying to keep this group closed in. And again, this move might look unrelated, but it's doing 2 things. It's protecting this cutting point at N15, which might be problematic for black otherwise. And it's also setting up a cut at K13. So if you remember a moment ago, I showed this variation where black can't cut because these stones are dead. But if black had a stone at M15, then suddenly black could actually come out with the cutting stones here. So this move is protecting black's cut and also preparing to cut white off. Now white is going to close black in here. So black has a little bit of RG here. White can just barely keep black contained. Like I said, it would be a bit different if these 3 stones were already off the board. Let's maybe, I don't know, let's just make this exchange now. Then I think it would be a lot simpler for white to just connect solidly here and have sort of Mi2, well, maybe not in this way exactly, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how this short of liberty plays in exactly. But in the game, like white backs off in this way and black is allowed to capture 1 stone on this side. But white can still keep black contained with this Tsuji. And so now black is cut off. It looks like black is just going to die inside. But of course, black also has the cut, which was just prepared earlier by this move here. So now we can see this move is no longer working. Black is connected. So both sides are cut off. White is cut off, black is cut off, and it's sort of a capturing race between the 2. White increases the liberties a little bit inside here, and black increases the liberties with this move. This is like a typical, this is not threatening anything, not making any eyes, it's just a solid move to increase the liberties in this group. So that's how you can see that this is definitely a capturing race. But actually, this capturing race, they played 2 more moves here, but then they're gonna leave this for a long time actually, because all these co's connected to it, like there's a co here on the black side and a co on the white side, make it a bit unclear. It's not like you can say clearly how many liberties each side has. So it's going to be left like a question mark how this is going to turn out for a long time. But for now, white turns to the bottom, connecting here, threatening to capture 1 stone, so black connects, then peeps here, threatening to capture 3 stones. And before saving these 3 stones, black wants to make sure to stay connected, like we need to be careful to, black needs to stay connected between this group and this group down here. So black tries to get a forced move towards the corner, but white actually ignores this and just takes these 3 stones, and black gets to jump into the corner. So that's a pretty huge exchange that just happened. this corner, which was previously a pretty secure white corner, is now completely gone. And there's some agi left, but it really looks like it's going to be a black corner. And in exchange, white just got 3 stones, it looks like. So it looks like a bad deal, but actually white also has this K3 cut later on. So white has potential to capture these stones. So that's sort of part of compensation. And then also we're going to see how white is going to eventually get a ko in the corner, actually, to get some more compensation from this trade. Yeah, so 1 force move, and then white leaves it for now and just takes here. So now this is reducing the liberties a bit, so black is also going to capture the ko here to reduce the liberties. And then again, we play away from this big capturing race. So I think human players, or at least amateur players, would have a really hard time leaving something big like this on the board. You would probably play out lots of the liberty filling moves and see what happens immediately. But KataGo thinks it's not time to resolve this yet. We have more important stuff going on, like this capturing race on the right. So when white jumps down here, obviously, like if white were allowed to connect at S10, that would be really bad for black. So black plays this Hane and Tigers might connect like this. White takes the ko. Black cuts. So they're fighting a little bit over this ko here, and it might be surprising because it looks like just one liberty ko sort of. But it's worth 2 liberties sort of, because when white has this ko captured, it means that this move at k16 is an Atari, which makes it black is going to need like 1 extra move to fill the liberties. So that's why you're going to see them taking this back and forth a bit. Black has a ko threat here. Take it back. And now this move is a bit counterintuitive to me, but it sort of makes sense as denying black the connection here. If white were to play elsewhere, then black has this clamp to connect up very cleanly. So this sort of makes sense as taking that point away from black while also setting up some problems in the corner later. But the shape is a bit painful when black gets this point here. It looks at first glance like white is going to get cut, but actually white is connected. Black can't cut right now. This is good for white. But black can descend here, and this threatens to, like if white plays elsewhere now, this threatens to connect underneath in this way. So when black descends, white is also forced to connect. So black got some very pleasant exchanges in here. And for now, this is a seki between this white group and this black group, since neither side has an I, and there are some shared liberties. So sort of regardless of the precise number of external liberties, it's quite easy to see that this is going to be a seki in the end. And so black plays away to the lower side, because here remember that there's this problem of k3, where white can just swallow up all these stones, so it's quite big for black to protect that. But rather than protect directly like this, black throws in first and connects. And this has the added bonus of threatening h5, which would save the 3 stones by capturing 4 stones. So white protects against that with g4. And still here black needs to be careful to stay connected with the stones over here, which don't have much eye shape of their own. So black just connects like this. Another quick forcing move in the corner. Like at this point, black still doesn't want to Atari here immediately. To allow this is quite a pleasant way for white to play the ko. So black just backs off, and it's not going to be easy for white to set up the ko. It's going to take some work. Okay, this move, another one of those, looks slow, but it has quite an important follow-up. Black decides not to respond locally here, but black could probably like respond here, take a liberty, but that's sort of, it's going to allow white some extra force move here, some extra agi on top. So black instead decides to just take a liberty in this big capturing race here for now. But this is going to allow white actually to capture this 1 stone, which will get white 1 eye, which will allow white to capture this group. So it's a really big decision here for black to decide that, yeah, I'm gonna try to take the upper hand in this capturing race and sort of give up on this one. So white plays this fancy looking move, and this is like the main thing this move is doing is just going to be to capture this Q13 stone. So white could do this more directly with a move like Q14 here. If white played Q14 now, black wouldn't connect because this would be not very good for black. Black can actually connect up here, but when we get to this point, white can Atari here, and black can't actually save this one stone. Might get something like this, where white wins capturing race. So at this point, when white Ataris, black would be forced to Atari under. And you see, even though maybe white will end up with no eye in the end, so it will still be a Seki here, it's not worth it for black because white loses so much. Black loses so much in the corner. So at this point, black is just going to back off, place a move in the corner, allow white to take this stone in Gote, so that, like capturing all these stones in Gote, and then black can play some other big point. But now black has a very solid corner, so white is going to try to get a little bit more by starting at c16. Black protects here, and quick forcing move in lower left, and then white pushes here. Again, black can't save the one stone, white would cut. So black just protects here, white gets to cut, but now the difference is that there's lots of more RG in the corner. And white is going to use that first as co-threats for the lower left, which is coming up soon, and also for some magic that's going to happen on top at the end of the game, which we'll see. So it's not like white can live in the corner right now, but there's some... It's just barely dead, so that's why it's going to have a big impact both on co-threats and RG for later. Okay, so now black is trying to make sure that the lower left here is dead. Wait, whoops. Let's see. White is trying to keep the ko. And then they both play away again. So black captures the ko here in the center, still regarding this liberty situation. Also looking at, it's not relevant right now, but it's going to be relevant soon, this cutting points. It's also an important part of this ko going on here in the center. But for now it's mainly because of the liberties of the center group. So white takes a liberty here instead, and black descends here. This is a big territorial move, of course, but it's also setting up a move at b13, which is going to be used as a co-threat, but also takes away the eyes of this group. So after black has taken away the eyes, then this cut is going to become important. So it's all sort of connected together. It looks like a pure territorial move, but it has quite important consequences when it comes to the safety of this whole white group. So now white starts to ko in the lower left by connecting here. Black plays Atari, and it's a ko for life. So now we're going to see white use the ko threat which was prepared in the upper right by the S16 move. This first one is obviously threatening to connect up with T14, which would be very big. So black connects with quite an ugly shape to prevent that. And black gets the aforementioned B13 move, which is threatening to kill all these stones. And white, of course, is connected. It's not like black can cut here, but we can see we get some other co-threat. But soon black is going to use this as a co-threat too and remove the ice in a moment. But for now, black has this as a co-threat. This is also worth mentioning. The threat here is actually that, so like if white finishes the ko, it's not capturing one stone in itself that's important, but the fact that this move becomes a double Atari. So to protect here, white actually does not just respond, but decides to take these 3 stones off the board instead. So it's no real threat for black to just take these stones, then white can just connect. The danger was that if white didn't respond, then after the capture, get a double Atari, and if black saves these stones, then this white group is suddenly dead, so can't have that. And we can see that white gets lots of co-threats threatening to live in the upper right, but black is managing to keep it dead. And now we see this one. So now white is forced to connect here, and suddenly white doesn't have 2 eyes on the left anymore. So really nice how black, like during the ko, manages to play quite profitable moves like this. I'm just gonna flick through the co-threats. But at this point, For some reason, white decides to not continue on with the ko, but instead plays this really big move. I don't completely understand this part. Like at this point, white could take back the ko, but instead decides to just push down here. This is obviously a big move, and it has some big follow-ups, like getting this free moves, solidifying this wall here. But it seems strange to do it with this timing, so I don't completely understand it. But black also plays away, doesn't immediately finish the ko. White gets some forcing moves. This is a forcing move. Response. And now black gets the time to kill the lower left. So there was some interesting order there, but basically what happened was that since white took the time to took some time away from the ko to play these big points, black is now able to kill the corner without ko, even while having backed up with a7. So now, like, white plays here, black plays here, we see that it's just that now it's no longer a ko. But white got j2 here, which means that first of all, it means that so like m6 and m1 here are going to be Santa for white, and it also means that now, okay, white pushes here. There's like enough art, even though it's this group is completely dead. It's like it has a ko connected to it, so it would be bad for black to allow white to cut here. So white gets this forcing move for free. And now white plays this move here, threatening seemingly to just capture one stone. So that may seem really unimportant, really small, but it comes back to the fact that this group is now not completely live. There are two potential cutting points here at d9 and e8, and white doesn't have two eyes on the left. So white is asking here, can I please get my eyes back? And black wants to keep white unsure of their life, so connects here. And then white plays a big move here in the center. So this is big because if when black doesn't respond here, the next move where white captures once again affects this capturing rate situation by reducing the liberties of this chain here. So black takes a liberty, white gets to capture, and black descends on the left. So by descending here, like obviously white would need to respond here, but then white doesn't have twice yet anymore, so black could just maybe cut here, and it's a bit, you know, we have to also keep in mind black needs to stay alive with this group, so I'm not sure if black really could connect immediately here, but this is really dangerous for white to die with this solo group. So at this point, white just takes the ko in the center, allowing black to capture here on the left. So now white has 0 eyes on the left, but could potentially connect up in the center. And yeah, you might expect white to just connect here. And I think if white did this, it's going to be a draw. KataGo was very sure about it being 50-50 at this point, it seemed. Because there's not much complicated stuff left. It's mainly just mostly small endgame left. So if you play it out, it seems to be a draw. And instead of doing that, white goes for a much more complicated variation. So it seems like white sees sort of an opportunity to maybe get better than a draw and goes for it, starting here on top. So this is going to start some really crazy exchanges happening. We see like the meaning of this peep here is that like if black just blocks here and maybe we can think about white getting this push and this push here, black needs to stay connected. White can play this one and black can't connect here because then white could throw in here. And black can't capture, it's a snapback, so if black captures here, then, you know, suddenly these 3 stones are dead and it's catastrophe. So at this point, when white here, black would need to connect, and white gets to capture here in Santa. And that's actually a big enough gain to make the game completely in white's favor. It might look quite small to just capture 1 stone like that, but the game was so even that, you know, getting a gain like that and then getting come back here, now it's completely winning for white. So black can't allow that, so black has to connect here. And now white gets connects here. this clamp, again, black can't allow white to live in the corner, so has to connect here. If black tried to like connect here, then white's suddenly alive. That's no good. White pushes here. Locally, of course, white would be dead even by capturing these 2 stones, but the problem is that black is dead on the inside here, so black needs to keep the liberties in the white group low as well, and if white can capture 2 stones, then the group gets too many liberties. So to keep the liberties low, black needs to play here. But at this point, black can capture the tail, like this. White can connect here, but white is able to capture these 3 stones. So black keeps white separated from the corner. That should stay dead, but white can capture and live inside. So the result of that magic sequence was that white died with the tail, died with the corner, but by using the art of both sort of in conjunction, white was able to live inside black's area. So now you might say, okay, if it was completely even before and now suddenly white lived inside black's area, just completely, then surely white is winning now. But remember that white did not finish up the business down here. White actually had to take the ko here to stay safe. So now black can take the ko back here. And now this whole white group here is in danger because white can't, there are 2 cutting points. White can't connect up simply. So white gets a big ko threat here, takes the ko back. Black has a ko threat here. This is a big ko threat which white created by living inside here. This would not have been a big ko threat before, but now this is threatening to kill this whole black group and revive the white corner. So black must respond. And this is a really interesting ko threat. This is threatening, if white captures here, is threatening to start a new ko down here to capture all these stones. But it might seem weird to, like, as a ko threat threaten another ko. Wouldn't it be better to just connect? And then if white captures, then you can just simply capture the stones without ko. And, you know, sometimes the answer is yes, you could. It would work just as well. But in this case, it seems like this would not work. It has to be the ko because after this one, if white responds here, black wants to start this ko and be able to cut at this point. And if we compare this shape with the shape afterwards, like if black just connects here and now starts this ko, then after black cuts here, white has 2 local ko threads here. White has this Atari and then this Atari. And when black instead, goes with this one, then not even this is a ko thread. So, wait, not like that, like this. Respond there. So even like this might potentially, because this would even only be 1 eye, so it doesn't really matter. So either white has 0 local ko threads or 2 local ko threads, depending on how black starts the ko. So it makes a big difference here between e7 and e6 actually. And it makes the difference between white being able to win black being able to win the ko or not. So if you look at the other ko threads available on the board, those 2 ko threads turn out to be deciding the ko. So that means that white can't actually afford here to respond. Like if white just responds here, white is going to start the ko and is going to win the ko or get enough compensation elsewhere to win the game. So white actually has to sort of concede here, take the ko and allow black to start this other ko. But white is foreseeing that white is actually going to lose that other ko. So before doing that, white plays a ko threat here because this, not ko threat, white plays a forcing move here. Because this move will no longer be forcing after these white stones are off the board, of course. So I want to play it right now. And then white captures up here, allowing black to start with other ko. So we can see like now would for instance be too late to play m1 if it were not played already. White needed to play it earlier. White takes. Black has some big ko threats here inside. And white just plays this one, which is really small, right? It's it's just taking 2 stones. Sort of taking 2 stones back. Previously black got this little area, now white wants it back. There are some bigger ko threats for white. For instance, t14. would be a bigger code threat. But black has more code threats anyways. So black has like Q4 is a code threat, for instance. So, and also like N10 and so on. So at this point already, white just goes back and says, okay, I'm happy with just getting this as compensation, allowing black to capture this whole big thing, and white just gets 2 stones. So again, that seemed really unfair. Suddenly, like black gets a really big capture, white gets a really small capture, but that was sort of the compensation black got for white just living inside of black's area. So huge trades back and forth, but it's still even. It's still completely even after all that. So white had an easy option before to just go into an easy draw, but went into this really complicated exchange variation, and it's still completely even. We have some small endgame now left. And at this point, we can see that there's a ko forming here on top. And I think this is sort of the reason why white went into this variation as opposed to the other clear draw, because the game is looking like it's probably going to be a draw, but it depends on this ko here. So KataGo is giving white slightly better winning chances at this point because it's not completely sure yet whether, who is going to win this ko. So I think like when, long time ago when KataGo sort of rejected the simple variation, I think it maybe chose this one because it saw some possibility of getting a win here with winning this ko for white. So black takes the ko, it is a ko threat. This is a ko threat which is actually not threatening to kill the whole corner. Like this would not be... the corner has an eye and white does not have an eye, so this is not working, but instead what white could do is start with this move. And of course the 3 stones are enough at this point in the game, black can't give them up. And we might get something like this. So this is a valid ko threat. Black has to respond. But now white just plays a dame, so again it's a bit premature. White could continue playing, like for instance this throw-in, this Atari. But it turns out that black has more ko threats, so black has, let's say black has this move, and like this move, and this move, so at least 3 ko threats just here on the right. So white is seeing that there's no way actually at this point to win this ko, so white just plays a dame, black has to connect the ko, and then it's going to be a draw. So this was sort of like white's last chance. If white had just a few more ko threats, I think 2 more ko threats, then white could have won this ko and won the game by 2 points. But as it stands now, they're just dame left. I think in the original Kifu we had just 1 throw in there, and then here the game sort of the game record ended. But if you play out just all the dame, I think I got them all there. Like if you score the game from here, you can see that it's actually a draw at this point. So as often in these complicated AI games, you have these really big exchanges which somehow magically just turn out to be completely even in the end. So like I find it so cool that at this point, see before white starts on the top, like here at this point, white had an option to just go for a really simple draw here by capturing here. It's completely even. It would be the same result as we had in the game, but without all this crazy stuff happening. So this white group will live, this black territory will stay territory, but white instead went for the variation where suddenly white lived inside, this group died, and then white got this point back on the left. And all that cancelled out to be completely even, so that it's still a draw in that. So I hope you enjoyed that game, and thank you for watching.